All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our referendum virtual forum. We're here to answer, hopefully, all the questions you might have about the upcoming referendum question that's going to be on November 4th's ballot. Some of you may have already voted. Some of you might be planning to vote early. And if you haven't yet voted, we are here to tell you that one, we want you to vote. We need you to vote. And I am allowed to ask or tell you that we are seeking voter approval, though I'm not allowed to tell you how to vote. I've been the superintendent of Summers Point Schools for 2 years now. I've been in the district for 4 years total. Prior to that, I was the principal at Jordan Road School. And interestingly enough, this year I am both the superintendent and the principal of Jordan Road School. This is actually my 30th year in education. I started as a teacher, but I have been an administrator for 23 years. So I'm excited to be the proud superintendent and the proud principal here in Summers Point. And we hope that you are just as proud to be residents and taxpayers of this wonderful community. I take a lot of pride not only in what our students do, but what our staff does, what our board does, and what our families do. This is a quick little plug for the Monster Mash that's coming up. But our PTO and our fundraising team have already helped us raise over $17,000 for field trips. And that really speaks to the idea that we do our best to run a fiscally sound district. We don't put the burden entirely on taxpayers. We like to come up with ways to spend less than we should be in an effort to save taxpayer dollars. And towards the end of saving taxpayer dollars, it's really important to understand that this referendum allows us to unlock $1.9 million in state aid. That's money the state already has for projects like this. These are taxes you have already paid to the state. And we're trying to do our best through this referendum to get that money back to Summers Point. Because the work we have to do in all of these buildings that we're going to talk about in a minute is work that has to be done or will have to be done at some point anyway. Why wouldn't we as a community want to use state tax funding to help fund those projects as opposed to having to pay for all of that work ourselves? So that's kind of like what we're going to do tonight. Before I introduce our panelists, we're going to play a brief video for you telling you more about our project. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Summers Point School District, where our schools have served students since 1914. Our caring, highly qualified educators are proud to offer a strong educational foundation to the students in our close-knit community. This November 4th, we are asking voters to consider a $5.6 million bond referendum on the general election ballot. If approved, the referendum would fund major facilities improvements with no increase in taxes, thanks to the district's smart financial planning. With an approved referendum, Summers Point Schools will receive $1.9 million in state aid. That state aid, plus debt from a previous referendum that is being paid off, equals no tax increase. The board carefully selected priority projects that would fit within the expiring debt to keep the tax rate steady. The projects would touch each of the district's 3 buildings. At Jordan Road, classrooms would be converted to accommodate 10 pre-K classrooms with individual bathrooms and security doors. This conversion is critical to continuing the free preschool program for our community. The state funding Summers Point School receives to run this free program requires each preschool classroom to have its own bathroom. Right now, not all of our preschool classrooms meet this requirement. Updates to the fire alarm systems and adding key card access to doors at Jordan Road would enhance our existing security measures. Bathroom updates would increase accessibility. Also proposed are improvements to the windows and ceilings, plus removing some old floor and wall tiles that contain asbestos. Although encapsulated and not dangerous, those tiles must be replaced. Jordan Road's worn and damaged walkways and ramps would be repaired. A new parking lot would be added, and perimeter fencing near the playground would be completed to add to safety measures. Other projects, like upgrading classroom HVAC systems, repairing piping, and recoating the roof, would improve efficiency. Dawes Avenue would receive fire alarm system upgrades and key card access for doors to complement the security measures already in place. Inside, classroom HVAC units would be upgraded, and carpeting would be replaced. Around the playground, fencing would be added, and railings would be renovated to increase security. The outside of the school would be repaired to reduce the risk of leaks. Parking lot drainage would be corrected, and the loading dock would be renovated. And finally, the roofing at New York Avenue building would be recoated to protect it from the elements and extend its lifespan. There's something for everyone in the proposed referendum, all with no increase in taxes. When you vote in the general election, look for this important school question on the ballot. Remember, with voter approval, Summers Point schools would receive state aid. That aid, combined with smart financial planning, would keep taxes neutral. Please visit the referendum website at www.sptsd.org/vote for all of the details. More importantly, vote on November 4th.
All right, welcome back. And at this time, I'm going to take an opportunity to introduce tonight's panelists to you. First off, we have Mr. Mark Leung. Mark is our school business administrator. He does a great job of helping to manage the district's finances, and he'll speak more about that role shortly. Ms. Linda Viventi is our architect. She's here to help describe the projects that are being proposed in the referendum, many of which you just saw in the video. One of our board members, unfortunately, Mr. Conover, was going to be here tonight to talk about school security. Unfortunately, he's on the night shift as a local police officer, and I'm going to have to do that for him. But we thank him for his earlier support and contributions, and of course, all of the efforts he puts in as a board member. Miss Wendy Atkinson is our preschool instructional coach. She's going to talk about the preschool program and how the referendum proposes the conversions of classrooms at Jordan Road School to accommodate the pre-K. Whether you are worried or interested in preschool or not, I will at some point tell you that we do need 6 bathrooms as required by the state, regardless. And to be honest with you, I'd like to use this referendum to pay for that work as opposed to having to put that burden again on the local taxpayer. Ms. Liesel Pajarillo is our district's bond counsel. She's here tonight to talk about how schools across the state use bond referendums to complete these types of large projects, and how voter approval grants access to that $1.9 million in bond or debt service relief that we're looking to get with this project. Mrs. Sherry Tracey is our district's financial advisor. She's going to describe how the district could complete these projects without raising taxes. Again, this is entirely tax neutral project, taking that money from the state. Key timing elements here that match it up with expiring debt allow us to do that. And then after this brief presentation, we'll take questions from anybody that's watching that has them. You can ask them via the Zoom chat function. Just simply click on the chat icon at the bottom of the screen, type your question into that. That question will be moved over to our script, and then we'll be able to answer those questions for you at the end. All right. So without any further ado, let's talk about referendum projects. All right. Linda's going to join me in just a moment. But these referendum projects fit into 3 buckets, basically: increased security and accessibility, enhanced efficiency and building upgrades, and preschool expansion. So our architect, like I said, is here, and Linda's going to help explain the details for each of these buckets. And then again, I'll talk about the security projects. So at Jordan Road, security measures are going to be increased by upgrading our fire alarm system, plus adding key card access to interior doors and security coding on selected windows near the main entrance. Dawes Avenue is also going to receive the fire alarm upgrades and key card access for all doors. It's almost funny to me that here we are in 2025, and our schools don't all necessarily have the same, I don't have mine on, I apologize, don't have the same key card access inside the building as they do outside. The last time we tried to use grant money for security upgrades, we spent probably $50,000 of Art Besser money to buy new locks for the school that we're actually still installing. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to totally upgrade those upgrades and not have to worry about keys, and do you have enough keys, and do you have the right keys? These are still an issue even with new locks. So that stuff's important. Fire alarm upgrades are important, all right? Access for the window coatings are important as we try to create, in the case of the worst possible imagined scenario, a safe place to give us more time to make sure we can get in touch with the authorities and get the police here. So Linda, are you prepared to talk about how the fire alarms are different from what's already in place?
Sure. I would first want to introduce my partner, Drew Dingler, who's also an architect with the Design Collaborative. On this project, he's mostly focused on the roofing, the silicone roofing at New York Avenue and Jordan Road. But if we could start at, since the Jordan Road slide is up, we can talk about the fire alarm system. Of course, as John Conover mentioned at our last meeting, we already have a fire alarm system, but the new code will require a voice command and a fully integrated system, which is different than what we have now. And even though the existing fire alarm meets the code that it was installed in, and it remains operational, it lacks the capability to provide clear voice and visual alarm, which helps when you have the voice included, more people can understand it. The alarm, the visual alarm is for people who can't see, and for people that can't see, you need the hearing. So that's why they have that, to be more inclusive. It reduces confusion during emergencies. And while we're doing this, this also has to be on the emergency generator. So we're going to rework electrical systems so that this increased fire alarm will be on the emergency generator, some lighting on emergency generator, and at this particular school, what else are we putting on? Making sure that your refrigerator and freezers are on the emergency generators as well, if they're not. So that's generally what we're doing with the fire alarm system. We are adding occupancy sensors to classrooms where we don't have them. That's so that would just to save energy. So when you walk in your room, you wave your hands and the lights turn on. There are some throughout the district, but it's not complete. I'm on Jordan Road School. We are making 2 bathrooms by the multipurpose room ADA accessible, and also the ones by the gym. So it's more convenient for the people that are in the multipurpose room to use a handicap accessible bathroom. Obviously, as Ted said, we have the classroom conversion of the pre-K. We're taking the annex, sometimes called the 200 wing. It's where the 4th grade was. We're going to convert those into kindergarten classrooms by adding bathrooms into the kindergarten classrooms and lowering some existing sinks there as well.
Linda, I want to chime in right now, not to confuse people, but the plan is to move the preschool into those classrooms. And so those would be preschool bathrooms. And then the current preschool bathrooms at Dawes become the kindergarten bathrooms.
Okay.
That's just been a point of communication. I want to make sure that I don't leave anybody confused with that.
All righty. As I mentioned, as we were talking about earlier, the Jordan Road School gets a recoating of the EPDM roof that's there, which will extend the warranty. We have 2 different types of window repairs. One is throughout the building, we have mullions that have separated. And if you look at them, you can see light through. And what we're going to do is try and pull that together, maybe put a panel on it, screw it together so we're more energy efficient. And down at the 200 wing, we have aluminum panels above and below the glass. And if you look at them, due to rain events, they're starting to rust, and we're going to take those panels out and we're going to put new ones in. Where the basketball court is at Jordan Avenue, Jordan Road, we're going to convert that into a new parking lot to hold 15 to 20 cars to reduce the traffic in the area. Additionally, behind the cafeteria, there's an old walk-in box that the roof is falling in on, and the local code enforcement official said you can't use this anymore. So we're going to take that down and close off the access to the building, and we're going to take like a C box and put it in its place. Throughout the site, there are walks and light ramps that have a spalling and cracking, and they have differential settlement, and we're going to take them selectively and correct those problems. It's a safety issue that we want to make sure that there aren't tripping hazards on our sidewalks. There's a small dehumidification control issue in a few of the classrooms across the hall from the office that we're going to try and handle. We have to do a little bit more research into exactly how that gets fixed, but it's included. Throughout Jordan Road School, there are many classrooms and office areas with asbestos tile that we're going to remove the existing carpet, pick up the asbestos tile underneath, and put new, either new VCT on top of it. So that is asbestos abatement. That is a safety issue. There's the bathrooms along the corridor near the office, that group bathroom. They have some galvanized piping that we're going to take out. Of course, our water it's not affecting the quality of the water, but we want to make sure because it's showing signs of age. We're going
Linda,
to.
how about a quick note, Linda, for our viewers, reminding them that while we're working on asbestos removal, that the asbestos that is in the building is currently encapsulated, poses no immediate danger. But instead of that being the temporary fix that we took care of last time, this time we're going to get rid of it totally.
Okay. Over in the annex that will be the pre-K classrooms, there are a few classrooms that have ceilings where the ceiling tiles are sagged due to moisture, and we're going to replace those ceiling tiles. In that area as well, we're going to, down on the end towards Jordan Road School, we're going to put in a set of doors for security and use the offices down there. Whatever small conversion has to occur at those offices, because that will be the entrance. The interior doors, as Ted mentioned earlier, we have some locks that need to be installed. We're going to work that with the security, the access control system. When I mentioned about the asbestos and replacing carpet or vinyl, we're also doing that in the main office area. There's a small area of fencing that we currently don't have enclosed, so people can still walk across the site. We're going during the school day and other times, but we're going to put in additional fencing and gates so that can occur, so we can lock down the perimeter of the site. And then the last thing is the card access system. If Mark wants to chime in on what we're doing there.
Sure. Currently the schools have card access or badge access into the schools in the exterior doors, but not all of the exterior doors. This referendum project for the badge access security control would include the key interior doors, all of the interior doors, more specifically, all of the classrooms. And the benefit of that is during a lockdown, you don't have to worry about having to manually lock everything. Everything's electronically controlled. The other benefits are you can tie that into your lockdown system. You can tie it into your cameras. So what you're going for and what you're looking for is a fully integrated system. And doing this rather than piecemealing it, doing it all together in one larger project would allow you to integrate these systems all together to make them more functional.
So you know what's great about that, Mark? Not only are you talking about the key system, Linda's talking about the fire alarm system. I mentioned security coding, but the best part about it is all of these security projects qualify for the maximum amount of state aid. Otherwise, we, as a community and a group of taxpayers, would have to pay for these necessary updates. All right, so next we have more projects that would enhance efficiency and update the buildings. The good news is Linda has been talking about all of these. She spoke about the HVAC upgrades at both schools. Is there anything else you want to add about any of the other projects before we continue, Linda or Drew?
I would just like to say that you saw the picture of the ponding in the back of Dawes Avenue. It's crazy. It's flooding. And the other thing, the other rain event issue that they're having is somehow at some times water is getting into the building, and we're going to do some investigations and stop that from happening through this referendum. The slideshow or the video picked up on everything else. The railing system that you see right there, that's only a temporary fix to those railings. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a permanent fix to these railings. If that netting wasn't there, kids would be crawling through them. I don't know how they ever got installed like that. The dehumidification is important at Dawes because currently the janitors are spending time moving these dehumidifiers into the rooms, and then they have to empty the water out of them, every day or whatever. And just by a simple control that we hope to put on, which we will through the thermostat, we will be able to reheat the air that's coming in so that we can capture that water before it gets to the classrooms. And it's going to give better everything in the classrooms once we put that in. But those are, besides some carpet replacement, those are the same things. Those are similar to Jordan Road.
So, Linda, you mentioned the roof earlier at Jordan Road. Forgive me, but I'd like to reiterate the fact that we're looking at recoating the roof at New York Avenue too. You want to tell our viewers one more time why these roof recoatings are necessary?
Yeah, Drew, do you want to tell them?
No, sure. I think that anyone who's been on an old flat roof knows that what you're going to see is cracking. You're going to see fissures. It's going to be weathered. That doesn't mean that the roof has necessarily failed, but it needs to be restored. So what a roof coating process does is it levels the roof and fills in a lot of the voids, a lot of the cracks, and it can extend the roof by another 15 to 20 years or more at a very cost-effective level. The other great thing about a roof recoating process as opposed to a roof replacement process is you're eliminating the need to replace the existing roof. The existing roof remains where it is, eliminating the need to place tons and tons of old roofing into landfill. So it's a green process.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, before we move on to the preschool program and Wendy, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that we talked about adding bathrooms to the 200 wing or the annex at Jordan Road School. It's important to mention once again that we are literally 6 bathrooms short by what the state requires us to have. So, I'm afraid that some people think, well, you know what? If the referendum doesn't pass, then we just won't do that work. And maybe we could save a couple dollars down the road. And it's actually quite the opposite. Like, we have gotten a waiver for those bathrooms, but we cannot assume that we're going to get that waiver again, especially when we have a plan to build bathrooms. So the real question is, can the referendum pass? Can we get $1.9 million in state aid to more than cover the bathroom cost? Or does the referendum fail and then we have to do something to raise that money anyway? I think that's a big part of this message tonight, is to understand that after our architects spent all that time describing all the work that needs to be done, It's not a matter of, okay, I'm going to vote to get the work done or I'm going to vote not to get it done. It's really just a matter of how do I want to pay for it? Work that has to be done now and work that will have to be done shortly. Do I let the state pay for, up to 40% of those costs? Do I borrow the rest of the money through the sale of bonds to make a tax neutral plan? Or do I simply raise taxes when necessary as each one goes? It is our position, the superintendent and the board's position, that we want to do the best to take advantage of money that's already out there and not put that burden on our local taxpayers, especially local taxpayers who have already paid their taxes to the state and the state has put this money aside. We want to get access to that money. We don't want another district to take our tax money. We've lost enough state funding over the years. Mark's going to talk about that in a little bit. We need to get that money back. And by putting the bathrooms in the annex, we're able to create an entirely self-contained, separate learning environment. So while those classrooms might be on the Jordan Road School campus, they will not be part of Jordan Road School. And I think that's an important distinction to some people. Wendy's with us. Wendy is ready to talk to us about preschool. Wendy, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and excited to be part of a program in Summers Point, our preschool program, which houses our youngest learners starting at 3 years old and 4 years old. And we're providing the basic foundation for learning all through their life and the social development. At the present time, we have 6 full classes. The max that can be in is 15, and we have just a couple of spots open, which makes us feel very happy because our program is expanding. But to expand, we need more room, and that room could be provided by coming over and creating an early childhood center, and that's what would make our program just so complete. We'd have possibility of 10 rooms, never turning a child down because there isn't room. And we would have bathrooms in the rooms and all of the room we need to keep young children happy and moving. And that's a lot of room. At the present time, all of the rooms would move over to Jordan, and our campus would have all of the therapists and great security and playgrounds that we could possibly need for these children. We are very excited looking for maybe developing our program forward and adding more classrooms. So maybe we wouldn't have to run right at 15. We'd have a little gap in there, but always have room for every child that wants to attend. The bathrooms that are going to be put in, because the state requires it be in the room, are going to be built specifically for 3 and 4 year old children's, and some of the toilets are smaller and some of the sinks are lower, and it makes the child independent in the bathroom. And then as we leave our bathrooms behind at Doll's School, not that old, they're just perfect for kindergarten children. So we're looking for the referendum, if it passes, to provide Summers Point and their young learners and their very active learners all of the areas that the state requests we have, and it would just be a perfect center for us to have our children have the education that they need and they require. It's a privilege to be provided to be in the program. We have terrific staff. We're dedicated. And some days when we leave, we're very, very tired from being around 3 and 4 year old children. So in thinking through this referendum, it gives us every opportunity to provide education to every young child in Summers Point, and to provide the experience for parents to have their children in a program that has been judged by the state just recently, 2 weeks ago, and we've scored top notch. So I hope the referendum gives us a chance to move forward with this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, and congratulations again on your high rankings for the preschool program. We're very
Oh,
proud of that.
thank you.
You mentioned the playground, and I think it's important for our viewers to understand that again, this plan not only creates a separate school for preschool, they get their own playground as well. I notice on the screen
Absolutely.
right now you can see what was the old band room, which would become the multi-purpose room for the
Yes.
preschool space that they
Yes.
don't currently have access to, and of course the band room just moved back to the old band room. So
Right.
plenty of room at Jordan Road for the middle school, plenty of room at the annex for the preschool. You know, it's hard to convince all of our voters that preschool is important, especially those who preschool is so far in their past and their own parent
Absolutely.
journey. But what's good about this program is, by using debt service relief and by using the sale of bonds, as we're going to hear in a minute right after Mark talks, we're able to spread these costs out over the next 15 years. And even though they're tax neutral, that cost is shared by people who use the facilities for the next 15 years. So much
Yes.
better than today's taxpayers receiving the full brunt of the burden all at once, to spread it out with zero tax impact, and to let everybody else who takes advantage of it to pay their fair share, I think is fiscally responsible as well. So thanks again, Wendy. And at this time, I'd like to reintroduce our business administrator, Mark Leung.
Thanks, Ted. So my part of the presentation is talking about the budget and how we fund these projects. These are all necessary, important projects, and I always like to relate it back to if you're a homeowner and you have to maintain your home, just like we have schools, we have to maintain the schools to run the programs. So you heard from Wendy talking about the great preschool program. You heard from the architect talking about all the projects that need the capital improvements that need to be done. And this has been talked about a lot recently, but I want you to know that this is, these plans have been in the making for a long time. Schools do what's called a long-range facility plan. It's a multi-year plan of improvements to maintain buildings. And so determining the scope of this referendum was through the architect's recommendations. It was projects that would qualify for the most debt service aid. And it was also projects that would fit within the expiring debt that our financial planner is going to talk to you a little bit about, and also the bond attorney. But those were how we developed the scope. And then there's really three different ways that you can fund and pay for these capital improvements. One is to budget and build it into your annual budget. The second way to do it is you squirrel away surplus. If you have surplus at the end of the year, and you put that into what's called capital reserve. And the third way, which I think we all agree is the best way to do it, is you tie it into expiring debt. You hopefully pass a referendum, and then you take on the equivalent amount of debt, so your debt service payments stay the same. And as Ted talked about, you also get up to 40% from the state to fund those projects, which is very, very important. So talking about doing it the first way, which is trying to build it into your annual budget, it's more and more difficult to do it, especially for Summers Point. If you take a look at the current slide there, that shows the state aid. So in terms of revenue, state aid is one of the major components of revenue that we receive to pay for our bills and operating and running the district. As you can see, over the 2018 to 2025-26, we've lost a cumulative amount of over $4 million. And to put that into perspective for everybody, our annual budget's about $20 million. So we're talking about 25% of our annual budget we've lost in state funding. So I think that's important for people to realize that to maintain our programs and maintain the level of education, but also try to keep our buildings maintained and the capital improvements, it's harder and harder to do it when you have less and less revenue. So next slide, please. So this is one of the slides that Ted and I presented when we were doing the budget for the current year. I think it's important to realize that although we only lost 3% in state funding this past year, last year when we lost a large amount of funding, the state gave something called stabilization aid. And what that was to the tune of about $510,000. That was not offered in the current year. So
No.
the fact that we had, reduction in state aid, we didn't get the additional stabilization aid. Our revenues, our state, I'm sorry, our local state taxes and what we can raise in state taxes were capped at 2%. So our revenues are really stable and we can't really increase them. So we're stuck at a certain amount. And then the extra challenging piece is the fact that you've got increased healthcare costs. So as you can see at the bottom of that slide, we were notified, we were in the state healthcare plan. We were notified by the state healthcare that they were going to increase our benefit cost over 30%. And that's the tune of about $1.1 million. And that will be effective January 1st, 2026. I think it's important time for you to share with everyone now as well. We had a special board meeting last night where the board approved us to leave the state healthcare plan and go with the coastal health insurance fund, which is a pooled insurance. And although the rates are going to go up 18%, it's significantly less than the 31.5% that we would have incurred on January 1st. And the other big piece is the electricity costs. We were told by our brokers that would be going up 17%. So as you can see, budgeting is very tough. So putting these capital improvements in an annual budget is next to impossible for our position. Next slide, please. So last year, there was an opportunity for something called the Tax Levy Incentive Program. And what that was is districts who are operating below adequacy. And what adequacy is it's the state's determination of what a school district should be spending to provide a thorough and efficient education. So for Summers Point, we were operating over $1 million below adequacy. So with that tax levy incentive program, what the state allowed local districts to do is through just a board resolution, we could have raised taxes 13.92%. But what the board decided to do, and that 13.92% would have paid for the preschool bathrooms that are required by the state. But what the board felt was the more fiscally responsible way to do it was to go for a bond referendum instead and get 40% of that cost paid for by the state. So instead of raising the taxes to 13.92%, the board chose to do a reasonable 5.49%. And you heard me earlier say that we're capped at 2%, but there are adjustments that are allowed through the budget process. One of the adjustments that the board took advantage of was the healthcare adjustment. Our healthcare adjustment, because of the anticipated 31.5% increase, the state allows you to do a healthcare adjustment in the property taxes. Next slide, please. Actually, I'm going to go off script here. I think Ted's going to talk a little bit about that in the next part. But I just want to finish off by saying that, and I think if you could skip a couple slides, I want to talk a little bit about the different buckets of funds this year, because I think it's important, because I talked a little bit about the expiring debt and taking on the new debt that would be equivalent, so taxes are not raised. It's important to explain that there's different tax buckets. So you see bucket one, that's the debt service school tax. So bucket one is what I'm talking about. Through this bond referendum, the debt service tax will not go up. And these numbers here are numbers for the 25-26 school tax impact. So that'll be different than the 26-27, which is when if the bond referendum passes, that's when that would take effect. So these numbers are less important. It's more what I'm trying to convey is the fact that when we say taxes won't go up, we're saying debt service school tax won't go up. Your general fund, which is your school tax, we're capped at 2% and other adjustments. So most likely your school tax will go up, but that's what happens to run a budget because your expenses increase. Healthcare, paying our staff through the collective bargaining agreement, there's raises in their salaries. So I just wanted to emphasize that when we talk about taxes that are not being raised, we're talking about the debt service tax. So thank you.
Yeah, Mark, that's a very important point. And not to be lost in that translation is the idea that this referendum independently is that $5.6 million of work, right? So when we're talking about $5.6 million of work, plus the 1.9 or subtracting, however you want to do the math, the $1.9 million in state aid, that entire project is tax neutral. So that's a really important point for the voters in Summers Point, I think, to understand that you're literally getting $5.6 million of work with zero tax increase due to the state aid and due to the expiring debt. The school tax might be different, but it's not to take away from the $5.6 million. That's a huge piece. So when I tell you that, or when you hear that tonight, that's the truth. It's literally $5.6 million and all the projects that our architect outlined with zero tax increase. It has nothing to do with anything related to energy or health insurance costs. All right. So thanks again, Mark. Moving on, we're going to talk to Liesel about the financial strategy behind a bond referendum.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about the financial advantages to an approved bond referendum. So as we've previously discussed, the most important point here is that an approved referendum allows your district to take advantage of debt service aid that is funded by the state of New Jersey. So how that works is that the state has established a fund that provides 40% debt service aid for eligible projects by a regular operating school district. So taxpayers across the state automatically pay into this fund, but the school district can only access that debt service aid that they've already paid into by approving a referendum. And the referendum is simply asking for voter approval for the district to borrow debt through the competitive sale of bonds. And one thing to keep in mind here is that the issuance of these bonds allows these investments to be spread over time. So that means current taxpayers and families with children that are enrolled in the district currently are sharing these costs with future taxpayers, families with children that will be enrolling in Summers Point schools in the future. So the district already has approval from the state for its eligible projects, all of which are outlined in the bond proposal question. Thus, the state's already committed to approximately $1.9 million in debt service aid if the referendum passes. So that works out to be roughly 1/3 cost savings of the total projects that's going to be contributed by the state. And keeping in mind that the way the bond proposal question is written does allow for some flexibility to transfer funds among the projects that are a part of the referendum, but rest assured, the district cannot spend any more money than what's authorized by the voters. So in this case, we have $5.575 million approved. That's the absolute maximum that the district is entitled to spend.
All right, so thank you very much. And at this time, Tracey is going to talk to us about how that $5.6 million worth of work remains tax neutral.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I know it's been, it's been said a few times tonight, and I think it just definitely bears repeating. When it comes to the debt service aid component, the debt service aid that has been deemed almost all of the projects, everything except $75,000 of the 5.6 million. So tiny piece was deemed as eligible for debt service aid. So the district is really maximizing the amount of aid. Debt service aid is a very special type of aid. It is, as its name says, only available when you issue debt. So it's not available to a district for funding these same exact projects if they were to use capital reserve or try to fund through the budget. That $1.9 million would not be available. It is only awarded if you issue debt. So that makes that very important. As Mark mentioned, the district has been losing a lot of aid, regular state aid, operating budget state aid. And so this is a chance to be able to really maximize aid from the state and bring some of that money, some of that state money that's being collected back to Summers Point. So how are we doing all this for no increase in debt service, in the debt service levy? In 2011, or actually it was December 2010, the district passed a referendum, issued bonds in 2011. Those bonds were issued for a 15-year term, and they are being paid off. So they're just paid off in this current year. And so because of that expiring debt, the district will be able to add this new $5.6 million in projects for a net neutral result on the tax impact. And again, that has to do with the expiring debt from the 2011 bonds that were issued. The district also has been planning for this, as was stated, for years, kind of looking at when this debt service, when this 2011 bond issue would come off, so as not to overburden taxpayers by layering debt on top of debt. This way it was, okay, the 2011 will be coming off. We're making our last payment in the 25-26 budget. The new debt then, if successful next month, would then be issued before the end of the year. And the debt would then pick right up in 26-27 budget and just be a real seamless transition, allowing the district to get the projects, all of these very important projects done. The neutral and the tax impact that we're talking about, the neutral impact, it is based on conservative estimates. So we used an estimated rate of 4.1% for a 20-year bond issue. Currently, rates would be somewhere about a 3.8. So actually a little bit lower than where we had projected. So again, if rates sort of were to stay there through the end of the year, if the bonds were to be sold, we could potentially be looking at an even lower level of debt service than just a neutral result. And then
That's
lastly, thank you. Absolutely. I just wanted to mention one other thing as well. The bonds would be issued with a call provision. So in the future, if interest rates were to drop lower, they could be refinanced for additional savings down the road. I just wanted to mention that as well.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So here you folks have heard it, right? The last 4 people have spoken, told you how we're going to get $5.6 million improvements for 0 tax increase. But we can't do it without passing the referendum. We can't get the state aid without, assuming the debt. So how does that happen? Well, that comes to you, right? Every ballot counts in a bond referendum. So we need you to vote. Can't tell you how to vote, but I can tell you that we are seeking voter approval because this question could be decided by a single vote. So every vote does count. And the Summers Point Schools referendum is included on the general ballot. So if you have already voted by mail, we hope that you have made sure to vote for the referendum question. Again, not for it, but for the question. How you vote is your civic responsibility and your choice. We just need you to vote because we like to think that when you take the time to understand what the question means and when you take the time to see what's at stake, you can't help but realize that this is absolutely the cheapest way for the district to do not only the work that needs to be done, but the work that's being required by the state of New Jersey as well. So hopefully you've voted by mail. Also, early voting has now started. You can vote early now through November 2nd at specific locations and times. I don't know where everybody's times are, but they are at the county library branches in EHT and Mays Landing. That's on Swift Drive in EHT and Farragut Avenue in Mays Landing. And then, of course, finally, you can vote in person on November 4th. All of the details on how to vote is on our referendum website, which is www.sptsd.org/vote. Hopefully you've seen that in the mail. Hopefully you've gotten the remind messages. Maybe you've picked up a flyer. I've been talking about it every possible place I can. But more importantly, it's not how you vote. It's not when you vote. It's just please vote. All right? It's so important that you vote. Now, at this time, we're going to open the floor to any questions that we may have. Again, viewers could be here live with us right now, or you might have an opportunity to see this later. If you watch this video after Tuesday night, you can still go to the website and find the newest way to ask questions. If you can't do that, you can always just call and ask me at school. All right, so let's see if we have any questions in the chat right now. Let's see, our first question is, why can't these improvements fit in the regular budget? I'm going to direct this question back to Mark because he did kind of explain why they can't. Mark, you want to hit that one for a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So you have a fixed amount of revenue. So it's not like we're a private business and we can change our prices on our product. We get revenue through property taxes, and we get revenue through the state aid. As you saw, state aid is going down, and we're capped at 2% plus adjustments on your property tax. Besides that, you have to have a balanced budget. We have to submit a balanced budget. And through that balanced budget, your revenues have to equal your expenditures. We talked about the expenditures and the various expenditures going up significantly. More importantly, the healthcare costs. And the healthcare costs, your biggest expenses in your budget are going to be your salary and your benefits. So your benefits are roughly $3 to $4 million of a $20 million budget. So if that's going up 31%, you guys can kind of do the math in your heads. It just doesn't, the math does not math. So putting those capital improvements into your budget, maybe you could put in $20 or $30, $50,000, but not to the tune of what we would need to do. And you heard from the architect, who is the expert on the things that need to be done in the district. You're not doing those type of projects in an annual budget, especially Summers Point, with the position with the losing the revenue and the funding. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks a lot, Mark. It's interesting too, because you're talking about all that work. And now the next question that I see is, well, how do we get $5.6 million worth of improvements without raising taxes? So I'm going to go back to Sherry for a quick summary on that question again.
Sure, absolutely. And again, it's really, it has to do with the timing of the 2011 bonds, when they were issued. The final payment on those bonds is March 1st of 2026. So those bonds, again, will be paid off in full. The very last payment on that issue. The new debt would be structured such that the debt service payment is almost identical. Potentially a little bit lower than what the payments were on the 2011, so that we're able to just put this debt essentially in place and continue with the much needed improvements that are there. Of course, with the benefit of the 1.9 million from the state. It's a little bit like if you think about paying off a car loan. Once you finish paying off your car loan, if you were to get another car, the same payment. And so nothing's really changing from a financial perspective.
Thank you very much. Between the two of you, I feel like I keep repeating this, but special thanks to our architect, right? We took the scope of that long-range facilities plan, and then we cut it down to match that number of expiring debt, and then want to get debt service relief to make up, about a third of that. So everybody that's here tonight trying to explain this process has done a great job. And I on behalf of all of us at Summers Point on the Board of Education, just thank you all so much for your efforts, because it's really quite astonishing to think that a district could get $5.6 million worth of work and $1.9 million of aid back and do all that work with zero tax increase. So our next question says, how much money would taxpayers save if we don't take on new debt and let the current debt be paid off? Well, that's the funny part. On one hand, you might think to yourself, all right, Sherry just said that debt is expiring. So if the referendum fails and that debt expires, how much money will we save? Well, here's the deal. You might save $11.50 a month on average in Summers Point. However, the work that needs to be done still has to be done, especially when it comes to the restrooms that we're required to have. That restroom project was $1.1 million, right? So you can't really vote no to that. We are 6 bathrooms short, period. So if you save $11.50 a month, starting when that is paid off in March, I believe Sherry said, well, what's going to happen is then your taxes are going to have to go up, because how long are we going to get away with not having bathrooms that we're required to have? So yes, would you save money if the debt expired? Probably $11.50 a month. How long would you save it? Probably not long at all, because the things that have to be done have to be done. And it's not just bathrooms, right? That long-range facility plan, like I just mentioned, contained more than $5.6 million worth of projects and work. We cut it down to that so we can make sure that this work is tax neutral. So yeah, you save $11.50 and then you don't. We have another question from someone out in the forum. Why do our schools need more bathrooms? Well, it's kind of like I'm trying to say when I answered the last question. Every kindergarten class and every preschool class in New Jersey is required to have its own bathroom with a sink and potty inside the classroom, plus a bubbler or water fountain outside the classroom. I'm sorry, outside the bathroom, but in the classroom. Again, between the kindergarten and the preschool classes, I'm 6 bathrooms short. There are 4 classes right now at Dawes that don't have the bathrooms. And like Wendy mentioned, I need 2 more for that universe to ensure we keep getting that funding from the state. So I can't not have bathrooms. And you can only get the waiver for so long, because the waiver is supposed to be until you get your bathrooms. If we continue to demonstrate that we just don't care, we're not having bathrooms, at some point we're not going to get the waiver, and then we're going to be in trouble and have to come up with bathrooms immediately. That happened last time, and that did not go well. It's basically impossible to install bathrooms in classrooms that have children in them. This is why the annex is also a smart move for us, because right now we have moved all of the classrooms out of the annex at Jordan Road School. We're only using it right now for storage and for administrative space, because we know it's the only place that's available to add bathrooms. So we might as well turn it into a self-contained preschool, let the state pay for it, and then use the preschool bathrooms at Dawes for kindergarten. And while people are still talking about it, it's important to remember that this results in a self-contained preschool that does not mix with the middle school. So the main building becomes 5-6 on one side, grades 7-8 on the other, and then the annex becomes a separate, independent preschool with its own classrooms, its own bathrooms, and its own playground. Dawes becomes an elementary school, kindergarten through 4th grade, and we're able to do so much with that. Let's see. We just got another question, $11.50 per what? All right. Well, that was the amount of money you would save as an average taxpayer in Summers Point per month. It's $11.50 per month. But the new referendum cost is only like $4 a month. So the $11.50 is all the debt that comes off the books, right? But the $4 a month is because we're not paying, because we're getting state aid. All right.
Yeah, and so I think and to clarify that a little bit too, and just sort of talk a little bit about the debt, the district does still have the 2016 bonds that are outstanding, and so they're contributing right now. I think, and the average resident is paying around $11.50 a month for debt service in total, but that includes both. So with the 2011 going away, and even with adding the new debt, if the 2011 were to just go away and we did not add the new debt, the savings would really only be about $4 a month, $50 total for the year. But I think, as we've stated, you might see that the savings there on the debt service side of the budget, but the need doesn't go away. So you're going to end up actually probably seeing an increase on the general fund side of the budget, because that money is going to need to be raised as these projects get done over a longer term horizon, because we wouldn't be able to do them all at once that way. So again, yeah, the temporary savings would be about $4 a month.
I see there's another question here asking if there's any programs that can help people afford property taxes as the state continues to shift the responsibility to the local taxpayer. Well, the good news is we have some information that we can share with you, but the state of New Jersey has several programs that do provide property tax relief, especially for senior citizens or people with disabilities. A new one called Stay New Jersey reimburses up to half the property tax bill of eligible applicants. For 2024 tax filing, the benefit is capped at $6,500 and the applicant's income cannot exceed $500,000. Another program you may have heard about is called the Senior Freeze. I know this is one that people in some of the groups I've talked to have spoken about. And what it does is it holds property taxes at the rate that existed when the applicant became eligible for the program. So its income limit was raised to $168,000 and change for 2024. And other current programs are the New Jersey $250 senior citizen property tax deduction and the affordable New Jersey communities for homeowner and renters. That's the anchor payment that if you qualify for that, you probably just got yours at the beginning of the month like I did. So as of 2025, these programs share a single application process, and you can learn more about these programs on the state's website or pay attention by calling 1-800-882-6597. That's 1-800-882-6597. Another question from the public is, what is the annex and why would our preschool be with older kids? So the annex is a separate building addition at Jordan Road School. Last year, fourth grade was located in that building. The year before that, fourth and fifth grade were locating in that building. But what we've done, what I've done, is I've made arrangements to restructure Jordan Road School. So currently 5 and 6 is on one side of the building, 7 and 8 is on the other side of the building, and fourth grade is now at the bottom of the box. So Jordan Road School proper is basically a rectangle, right? With 5 and 6 on one side, 7 and 8 on the other, fourth grade on this end, and the gym and the cafeteria on this side. Totally independent building. The annex, which is a separate building linked by emergency egress that can be closed, is empty except for the business offices. See, we vacated New York Avenue School because we had plenty of room at Jordan, and that allowed us to lease that building, which saves us another $50,000 probably in utility costs and helps us generate, I want to say, $96,000 in lease revenue throughout the year. So like Mark mentioned, right, we're $1.1 million below adequacy, but at the same time, we're doing everything we can to cut utility costs, especially New York Avenue, generate revenue, including New York Avenue, to join the Southern Health Insurance Fund, help save another $258,000 in health insurance. Like, we're doing a good job. The state recognizes we're under adequacy. And once again, instead of raising local property taxes to make up that difference, we're trying to pass this referendum. All right. So the annex is that side of the building. That annex can be converted, that 200 wing, that E wing, whatever you want to call it, can be converted to its own self-contained preschool. Those children will not go to school with the middle school kids in Jordan Road School. They are just going to be located on the same campus. Excuse me. They will have their own playground, their own bathrooms, their own multi-purpose room. And again, when you move the preschool over, you're bringing almost 20 staff members over with you. That is going to greatly impact or improve traffic patterns and parking at Dawes Avenue School. And by adding a parking lot at Jordan Road and finding a place to put them, you don't necessarily have to further disrupt parking and traffic at Jordan. Also, I've heard some questions about the basketball courts. There's nothing that precludes us from parking there during the day and during the week and having the baskets remain in the lot for kids to use when we're not there. Also, we're talking about, I'm sure Linda, our architect, and Drew can make sure that maybe we can even add 2 baskets to another part of the central playground area of the Jordan Road field. So, you know, losing basketball nets is not a problem that's unsolvable, but gaining parking helps residents at both school locations. So I hope that answers that question. I see no other questions at this time, so we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here tonight, and I want to thank everybody for your participation. Good night, everybody, and don't forget to vote on Election Day, especially in regards to the question. Thank you.